So, hello everybody. We are here for another edition of Employer Branding Unplugged, and I am really excited because we've got Kat from Mercy Health and Matt Quinn from Anglicare Victoria. Matthew or Matt? What do you prefer?
Matt's fine.
Matt.
Yeah,
Matthew's if you're in trouble.
I've been called worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this stuff. I love both of you. We've connected for a long time and we've worked together. And I love your industries and the sectors you're in. So this is all about healthcare, human services, helping people to help people. So we're going to talk about that today. I would love you to kick off, just perhaps give an introduction to yourselves, to your organisations. Love to know a bit about, how many people you've got in the organisation and what you're trying to do. Who wants to go first?
Great, I can.
Thanks.
So Katarina Elezovic from Mercy Health. My role is Head of Talent for Mercy. I've been there just coming up to 8 years now, so quite a while. So Mercy Health is, I want to say, over 11,000 hearts, so 11,000 of us working nationally across Australia. And that's across public health and then the privatised part of our business, which is aged care and home care, predominantly across the East Coast and then in WA as well. My role there looks at, obviously, as head of talent across talent acquisition, but also includes HR services, onboarding, and reporting and analytics in HR. So a bit of a mumbo jumbo of elements in talent, but essentially looking at, what's our talent strategy, looking at the overarching priorities, and then how do we support that from a talent acquisition point of view to attract and retain the right people to join the organisation.
And I love that your role flows through to the embedded employee. We talk about the power and the importance of the early hire experience and those first few days and weeks. We always say it's like a newborn baby, right? If you get those early days and weeks right, everything gets easier and they're more likely to hit the ground running and succeed and to keep showing up. Yeah. So quite often I know recruiters internally and externally who you sort of hand this hire over, and then you're very dependent on others. But you've got that opportunity to influence.
Well, we've just learnt that recently, but I think it's a nice addition to that whole sort of end-to-end recruitment, being more than just finishing once that job is filled.
Oh, amazing. How about you, Matthew, Mr. Quinn?
Mr. Quinn. So I'm Matt Quinn. I'm Talent Acquisition Manager at Anglicare Victoria. So we are Victorian-based Anglicare, and we are predominantly child, youth and family services. So we've got 2,250 staff at the moment, and we look after vulnerable Victorians, basically, through that whole life cycle from young... from childhood through to adulthood and all the messy bits in between. Child, youth and family services, residential care, family violence, emergency relief, counselling. So one of the Anglicares, being Victoria based, we don't actually do any aged care services. We stay very closely in that child, youth and family services.
I love it. So we're gonna talk a lot about this. The noble purpose, the hard work, the slog. It's a war zone working in these sectors, right? It is like let's make no mistake, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about this difference. I mean, 2,250 people versus 11,000. Very different backgrounds, very different leadership, lots of things going on. So we're going to cover all that. But I'd like to start with you two. You've both come from really diverse backgrounds. When you've known someone for a while and then you go and look at their LinkedIn profile, like, oh, I didn't realise just all the different things you've done. What attracted you, Kat, to join this industry? And I guess what keeps you coming back even though it's hard?
Yep. Good question. So my background started in retail recruitment and then moved into agency world. I've sort of did some pieces within aviation, within electricity distribution. So it's very varied. I got into health insurance and that sort of touched on the aged care space. And then more recently, just before joining Mercy, worked in investment banking and then financial services. But it was those more recent roles that kind of were purpose-driven in that they were profit for members or a focus on mission. And there was a deeper sort of root purpose to those roles. So when the role at Mercy came up, in all honesty, it was a bit of, do I want to get back into the healthcare sector? I'd done it before, but there was a huge attraction being a brand new role at Mercy, and I joke to everyone to say my initial purpose, and I think I've told you, joining back in 2018 was developing an EVP. So we'll get to that, how long that took. But I think, the attraction to Mercy wasn't instant in terms of wanting to come back into health. But I think, I've been here now nearly 8 years. So there's probably an element of what's kept me here. And that I reflected on that this week to kind of go, what have I done in these 8 years? And I think when I first joined, there was a greenfields opportunity that year. So a brand new facility that we had just opened up. I think we've had about 4 acquisitions. We've had an applicant tracking system implementation, HRIS implementation. We've had our EVP. So it's kept me challenged. And, I've managed the OD team as well. So I think there's been so many opportunities in those 8 years in the health sector that I think regardless if it's a smaller organisation or a larger, within that health space, you kind of get pulled into every direction and have to do lots of different pieces, which keeps you engaged and motivated and challenged. But I think you don't get those opportunities sometimes in different organisations.
And it's interesting. I mean, obviously, I think a lot about brand, which is brand is experience and truth and reality versus expectation and how those things mesh. And I think a lot of people would think a not-for-profit or a purpose-led, values-led health, human services, it could be a less progressive career option. And yet everything I've seen in my entire career in this space is actually the opposite of that. And what I find interesting is part of it is the scale, and absolutely these sectors have to grow and have to keep evolving, but also the starting point. There's a lot of work still to be done in organisations in this sector, things like you talked about around talent acquisition, around workforce planning, around strategy, and of course around employer branding. Yeah. How about you, Matt? What drew you into this sector, and where'd you come from?
Agency recruitment, I suppose. Well, depends how far you rewind.
Let's go all the way.
All the way. Okay. Well, yeah, coming out of school, I always wanted to be a recruiter. No, I didn't really. No. Who can share that story? Coming out of school, I was a chippy, a carpenter, qualified carpenter. And I like the people side of things. And I remember my uncle saying, "You've got a bit of sales in there." So I started off in a bit of sales, and then I kind of fell into recruitment, as one does. But loved it. Just loved it. Just loved the whole, everyone's an individual. And you work with a lot of big companies and you think, well, it's this, it's X. So you just find X and you match X with X. But then you start to realise everyone's an individual. And that really, I loved that people side of work. And yeah, coming to Anglicare was a tricky one. I think it was very similar. With the agency recruitment, it's very kind of one-dimensional, quite transactional. But you kind of crave a little bit more. And when you swim in that very specific lane of just that element of the process, you kind of crave the bit before and the bit afterwards. And yeah, the position at Anglicare Victoria came up, and it was when they were first starting to develop their internal TA function. So it was a great opportunity to get in at the beginning and really look at things holistically, and just the whole candidate experience side of things, and that having the freedom and the opportunity in the agency to look at things as a big picture. And yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind over the last 7 years I've been with AV. It goes so quickly, doesn't it? It goes really quickly. But yeah, we've done similar things with the EVP work that we did with Mark, and ATS and marketing and candidate experience and onboarding and training and workforce planning and development, resource management. It's just so much varied. And I think as long as you buy in to the work that they do, which is really difficult not to, I think, when you look at, the clients that we work with day to day and the good that the agency does day to day, it's really difficult not to buy into that. But it's brilliant being in a position where you can also have an impact doing something so back office, which traditionally is quite difficult to link what you do behind the scenes to what happens on the front line.
Exactly.
But it's not been a challenge at AV.
And that's the point. So absolutely, you need people to be inspired first and foremost by purpose and impact, and that the role that's happening, whether you're behind the scenes or front facing. But what is underdone consistently in shared services, in corporate roles, is the actual career opportunity that it brings. To if you want to develop your skills, if you want to have a resume that kicks ass, if you want to really feel validated and bring your skills and see them in use, why would you go somewhere where it's already really slick and smooth, you know? And so it's just the mindset might be, is it a step backwards to go into human services or, you know, a smaller organisation or whatever, but actually no way, you know? And I think that's really ramping up now even further.
It is weird because you kind of, maybe thinking about it back, I did almost have that mentality of taking a step back. Because I went from an agent, like a leadership role in agency, into a recruitment specialist position with a really clear focus. But that was 7 years ago, and now...
And that's the thing. So it brings you stability because they're always going to need you. I know it's challenging at times, and it brings you that purpose. But if you just sell on that, it's almost like you've missed the real thing, which is come in and, you know, great EVPs are about give and get. So if you don't come in and own it and want to transform and initiate programs and do the hard yards, you're not going to get the outcomes from it. You're not going to get the experience from it. Let's talk about your organisations and what you're trying to achieve. Look, we always say, and people are probably sick to death of hearing me say this, but employer branding and anything talent strategy wise is a business solution to a business problem. And so what we say is whether you're doing an EVP, values, culture work, recruitment strategy, whatever, you're trying to achieve the organisation's goals through and with the people that you employ now and in the future. So I'd love to talk about your organisations and the opportunities you're chasing, the problems you're solving. We always say employer branding is a business solution to a business problem. Same with anything talent strategy wise. And I always advise people in TA, HR, people in culture, comms, to frame what they're doing through the lens of how it's contributing to the commercial strategy, the strategic vision, etc. So, Kat, at Mercy Health, what are the problems you're trying to solve? What are the opportunities you're chasing?
Yeah, so I think we've got a very clear strategy and we've got a very clear value proposition. At the end of the day, the people are our service. So it's a very clear business in terms of what we're delivering, which is our people are serving and driving the experience that our patients, our residents and our clients are experiencing each day. So our role in that is ensuring, you know, we talk about a skill shortage and all of that. That doesn't change. That hasn't changed in the last decade. It's not probably going to change in the next 10 years. So our priority is how do we ensure that we still do all those bits and pieces of work, which we have to do? How do we build that workforce strategy? How do we look at different sourcing channels? All those things. Recruitment doesn't change in its essence. But what we want to do is take it to the next level, and how do we build a sustainable model that really focuses on attracting the right people to the organisation? And one step further from, you know, a lot of places talk about skills-based recruitment. We take it to the next level, which is more about hire for heart, which is how do we take an individual who has the right drive and passion to join an industry like health, and how do we support them to not only get the skills to join, but then develop them and have a sustainable career within the industry. So I think it's about changing it just from, you know, that isolated to a more holistic approach around how we look at talent management within this space. And that's probably been our key focus and will be our key focus going forward, which is how do we give people the long careers that we've all had, because we know that once you join and you're the right fit, there is a really rewarding career ahead.
Super interesting. So you're thinking about the mindset. We always say a great hire isn't just someone who has the right skills or qualifications, and it's not even somebody who demonstrates the qualities or it is about saying, are they up for the problems we're facing? Are they up for the challenges of this? Not just the obvious challenges of being a nurse or of being a carer or an allied health professional, but actually the specific, for example, if you're going through lots of change, how do we ensure that somebody's coming in ready for that, and that they have been prepared, they feel they've been warned about it, and that they actually can contribute to the positive change?
Exactly.
That's a hard thing to do in quite a dispersed organisation, because you've got people in lots of different places, you know. Okay, we're going to come on to that one. Thank you. How about you, Matt? What are the opportunities you're chasing? What are the problems you're trying to solve?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because I think when you think of that branding and the whole TA thing, you think of attraction, retention, engagement. They're all the standards. But I mean, for us, and I really like what you said before, Kat, which is the whole, the big leave, the big resignation and skills shortages and talent shortages. And it's, I mean, you go 6-12 months and you hear a new thing that's causing challenges. They'll always be there, and I don't think you can ever get away from that. But I think one of the things for us is it's a really tough job that people do, working with some of the young people that we work with, occupational violence and aggression. It's tough. And we didn't want to dress it up, and you can't get away from the facts. So I think one thing that we wanted to do is share the good and the reward and be honest and authentic about how difficult this work is, because people do it. There are people who do the work, and people who want to do the work, and people who do the work really well. But on the flip side, there's also people that it's not right for.
Yeah.
Because on the face of it, youth work, great, how brilliant is that? Go to the park with the kids, great. But, in reality, it's not like that.
Yeah.
And it's our responsibility to share what the reality is.
And we always say, as you said, your people are your service, your people are your brand. Nowhere is that more visible than in where there's high risk to individuals. The children's safety and well-being and the employees' safety and well-being are very dependent on you, that being the right fit.
Hugely. And it's not necessarily about culture fit anymore. It's about that culture add. It's about understanding what makes a good person for this industry. But yeah, it's really tricky. There's always going to be challenges, and I'm waffling a bit now.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, mate, you're talking to the king of waffle. All right, I built a career from waffle. So no, it makes so much sense. I'd love to actually flow in and talk about your EVPs that we did. And again, I'm fascinated in this stuff. One of the things I'll frame this with is any human services, healthcare, disability, aged care, youth, family, any career in that space, you're going to say something around make a difference. And that obviously, and that's there. And that I've always bang on about, if your people really do make a difference, don't just say make a difference. What we say though is it's not just finding another way to say it, it's understanding the angle and the nuance. And it's actually saying to your current team and then future hires, why should you come and do this through us? Because there's this really interesting duality where often the expectations and the standard for people in front-facing care roles is pretty low. Like their expectations of their employer and their experience are pretty low. They're there to help people, and that's what they do. And yet they have so many options. They can do that in so many places. So one of the key challenges we set ourselves in partnering with you is to say, but why do it with Mercy Health? Why do it with Anglicare Victoria? Matt, you were touching on some of this stuff, so I'll start with you. Your lead line, if you like, your core concept is meet the moment, make it matter. And it was very, very deliberate, ending up with something that was very action-oriented, that was very about a call to arms to say not just purpose and impact, but actually agency to shape that moment. Tell us a bit, anything you want to talk about that process or about the outcome or about the EVP itself.
The one thing that always resonates with me when we went through the whole exercise is a quote in the pack, which was the bridge between the moments and the momentous, which speaks so well to Anglicare Victoria as a whole. It's not about the little moments, but there's hundreds of those little moments every single day, and it's that people turn up to do, whether you're on the front line as a residential youth worker or you're in P&C helping with onboarding. It's those little moments, but all of those little moments day in, day out add up to something that's so much bigger. And when you consider the great work day to day that people do at AV, but then look at some of the things like the Homestretch campaign that's increased the leaving care age across the whole of Australia now. That's momentous change. Yeah. So it just really shows that everyone who joins the organisation, regardless of what you do, you meet those little moments and you do your little bit. But the opportunities for that to add up to something massive is just huge.
I love that.
It still resonates with me to this day. I know it really does. Whenever anyone asks me about our EVP, I find myself using your language.
Oh, sorry about that.
Well, as I say, it's your language, but it's the reality.
Yeah.
And I think it is standing the test of time.
And that's so interesting, because if you look at it on the surface, meet the moment, make it matter. Obviously, there's a lot more underneath that.
Yeah.
You've got your pillars, your messaging, but you could argue, it's just some more words, right?
Yeah.
But the bit that from the moment I met your CEO, Paul McDonald, and then the rest of our team started talking to the rest of your organisation. There's this feel of it's the agency and it's battlers. It's interesting because you're not a small organisation, 2,500 people, but it still feels like you're punching above your weight in a really good way. And so I remember when I first interviewed Paul for the Discovery for the EVP, and I fell in love with him. Like I want to hang out with that guy. And I pictured him in a pub, with a beer and just sitting still and saying something unbelievably meaningful every time he opened his mouth. And that's what he was doing. We didn't have any beer, but we were chatting. But my big question is, so here's a guy who still is so embedded in the organisation, in the sector. You were saying before we started recording, he goes out to resi homes, he spends a lot of time, and none of it is with cameras, none of it's for show. In fact, he rejects that and he doesn't want the limelight. But he is so immersed in this, and the way he talks, he's scrappy in it, but he's also at the same time so succinct and clear. And he talks about the organisation. I asked him, what do you hope for this organisation, its people? And he said, I hope they have a go. I hope they realize how much they can achieve, whether it's in small ways every day or actually in big ways. And how long has he been in the organisation now?
17 years.
Yeah, so he's built and engendered this culture. And it's really interesting because it's not that he's made it about himself, but by default, a leader who's hands-on, who's absolutely unapologetic and unwavering and calls the bullshit, right? My question after, because I met with him first, I was like, am I going to find an organisation that where this cascades or not? And we did. And I'm not saying every employee comes out of the gate every morning and says, I'm going to change the world, but there is this vibe of agency which we don't see in many other organisations.
I mean, it's really rare to go to a job every day and feel like you and your CEO are pushing in the right direction and you've got that opportunity to try and not necessarily win every time, but have the backing of your CEO who's like, this is what we want to do, go and do it.
And as a result, your organisation has massively affected policy, and you have, and you've done it not just by, I mean, there are many, there's other Anglicares who are bigger and who have a a wider footprint. But you're that scrappy battler, opinionated, out there, telling the truth, heartfelt, and it feels really cool. Well, everybody check out the careers site, check out the stuff. It goes live tomorrow. Obviously by the time we show this, it will be out there. So, and I'll have judged the hell out of it and got in touch.
Yes, I would expect nothing less.
So brilliant organisation. And another brilliant organisation that's totally different in Mercy Health. You've got a very well established, you've been around a long time, you've got faith background again, but this and huge dispersion of staff. And this idea of, and the biggest thing was all the life stages, all those moments that Mercy Health are involved with or can be. Tell me about that. I mean, obviously we'll talk about your EVP within that.
I mean, to Matt's point as well, like, you look at an organisation and what the frontline staff are doing, but it's that connection between executives and all staff. And it's trying to sort of encapsulate a value proposition that rings true to all of those.
Yes.
And that's the tricky thing. And somehow, Mark, you've done it with two organisations really well.
Are really good at what they do, and I get to be a part of it, which is lovely. I will say that I helped come up with both of them, so I'm going to take some credit, but it was off the back of the awesome work from the team in the process.
Yeah.
But yours is so your lead line, where there's life, there's mercy, where there's care, there's you.
Yes.
And that where there's life, there's mercy was interesting because one of the problems we're trying to solve is people assuming it's just the hospital.
Yes. People know mercy for one thing usually. It's whether it's they've had a baby at one of our hospitals or whether they've got a grandparent in aged care or whether they've utilised our home care services. It's usually isolated to one experience that they've had. So for us, it was how do we bring together an organisation that has 100 plus years history. It's a faith-based organisation. It's a non-for-profit organisation. It's publicly funded, but it's also privatised. We've got a national footprint. We've got so many opportunities, 11,000 plus staff. And how do we show them that really we've got an opportunity, where we deal with the birth of children and we deal in end of life. Like it literally is the whole spectrum. So that's where I think that tagline really ties in. I don't know if you sort of want to go into it now, but
absolutely, let's do it.
I think, as I said, Mark engaging with our executive team and understanding the organisation, and we ran discovery sessions. And I think when it got to that tagline and I saw it for the first time, I thought, isn't this a beautiful tagline that, a lot of, taglines you could copy and paste onto any organisation. This one truly was made for Mercy because it's got Mercy in it. And we rolled it out to our leadership team. It was about 2 years ago. I think we're reaching 2 years now since Go Live.
2023, 2024.
Yeah. And it was literally a week later when we had one of our employees who emailed our CEO with a very heartfelt story about how this tagline resonated so closely to them that they actually used it in their interactions with a patient in palliative care.
I remember that. And it was actually with the husband of a patient.
Exactly.
And I remember it. I've got shivers because when you do what I'm obsessed with this stuff, and when you feel those are the moments that really validate, not just isn't that nice, but this stuff works.
Yeah.
The employee implied or said that it gave them the words they needed in that moment to reassure the husband of this patient.
Yeah.
To say we've got this, and we'll do everything with the greatest compassion.
Exactly.
And I remember it, and Angela was thrilled, your CEO. And,
Angela Nolan, I think emailed us with that information, and it just two things. One, it told us our EVP is true. It's authentic. It's what our people are feeling and experiencing on the floor. Two, it paid for itself. So there's your return on investment. Like, in all honesty, like that's, I think I question you, Mark, over and over. How are we going to track and measure our return on investment? It's very hard to sort of get that. Yes, we've got different KPIs and things that we look at that we can attribute to our EVP, but there's no real sort of measure to kind of go live and this is what an outcome is. But it's those experiences and stories that we hear. And it's unfortunate because we probably don't hear as many of these stories that we want to be hearing, because our workforce, again, has brilliant stories when we hear about them, but we don't hear about I don't think we even get to the surface of how many beautiful stories there are out there. So
well, we're working on it, right?
We're working on it.
I agree with you. Look, we can now measure huge amounts about the impact of an EVP, and obviously we've got lots of clients who are saying, look, we've increased our volume of quality applicants per role. We're hiring with more agility, with more efficiency, and with more effectiveness. We're reducing our early attrition, that sort of stuff. And that you can pretty easily look at trends. And you can't directly say the EVP did all of that. But actually, when you look at what has been implemented, what's been done, and you see everything going in the right direction, that's a great sign. I much prefer that, by the way, versus prompted recall. Can people say what the EVP is? And so that doesn't really mean anything at all, in my opinion. But you're right. It's the bit that's harder to measure, but is so powerful, is the internal groundswell of momentum and precision and clarity. And I'll be really clear. I'm not saying you get one or two nice stories and it feels good and that's ROI, but it's what it reflects and what it represents. I remember speaking to your leaders in a conference, you remember, and you could see them embrace this, pull it on. And then we did some storytelling, story sharing, and EVP allows you to frame the storytelling, whether it's recruitment and talent offer and selling the opportunity and inspiring, or whether it's actually driving pride and connection in your teams. It gives you that anchor and that mechanism to do it. So, and obviously the other, we said where there's life, there's mercy, where there's care, there's you. One of the other things is reminding people all times, and which is similar to you, wherever you are in whatever role, you're bringing that care, and we're relying. It's not just, isn't that lovely, but you're saying we're relying on you to do that. And I know it's a big ask because it's hard and it's difficult. Even if you're angry with your manager, even if you're angry with us,
we all have frustrations, at work.
We need you to bring that, and we see that you do.
Yeah.
Which is so powerful. And you said right at the start, 11,000 hearts.
Yep.
Which of course was part of the EVP.
It's part of our language now, is how we speak, and it's around having the hearts. It's not just people that work for us. It's not just a workforce. When you join Mercy, it's not just a job. It's you're joining a community of like-minded people who genuinely have this passion and drive to do well for society. So it's really tied in. It's really embedded quite well, and we're doing a lot more 2 years on, even around our EVP. So it's an exciting journey ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I feel like we've been... But I think one thing I have learned, giving ourselves the time because I think we're a little bit further behind than maybe we would like to be with the rollout of it. But even over the time that we've had, it's nice and hugely validating to see how natural it is.
Absolutely.
And see, you can almost hear the language in people who haven't even heard any of this, before. Just, I can just visualise it. It's like, oh, that goes there, that goes.
It's so interesting. And it's the other end of the spectrum to something I hate, which is big, noisy launch of an EVP. And I've said this many times, but nobody cares that you've got an EVP, and that's okay. That's a good thing, right? But what you've done is, I'd say there's a huge amount of progress in the internal, in the sharing it and using it, and now you've got that talent shop front about to go live, which is exciting. Speaking of activation, my favourite bit of everything isn't actually the EVP crafting; it's the storytelling and storytelling within EVP, but also the content creation, the videos, the written stories, and we've done that with both of you. How has that played out for you? How important is storytelling in human services in healthcare? Who wants to go first? Go on, Matt.
I think it's hugely important, and I think everyone understands how important it is these days as well, because I think it's massive. I mean, everyone's telling a story at the moment. It's brilliant to see. And being a classically trained recruiter, I might say, you get this nervousness of feeling like you're competing sometimes against these other stories. Yeah. But I've had to get my mind around that, because everyone has a story to tell, and you will resonate with some stories more than others. I think that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's
you're not going to be friends with everyone. Everyone's going to have their, it's finding the right people, and it's engaging with the right people, and it's sharing stories with the right people. I think the important thing is to put them out there. Yeah. But another thing we found as well is, like, it's quite validating to understand that your workforce and the whole agency and the psychological safety of the people that you've got with you makes them feel comfortable to share their stories as well. Because I think it's great if the stories are being told at that level, but it's really important to bring those to the surface.
It's really interesting, because we found over the years, especially in your sectors, people don't want or need the limelight, and they don't want to be shut. And actually, they get nervous about, is this going to go out on LinkedIn or on, And yet we've genuinely seen consistently, when you put it out externally, your internal engagement metrics and pride go up hugely. And it's not because people are arrogant. It's because people can't believe that this organisation is choosing to put them at the front of their brand, and they feel seen. And the other thing I've seen consistently is the people who are most nervous about it, the people who think I've got nothing to say, the people who say I'm not good speaking, they're the best people, especially for video content, because they're real. And there's this wonderful moment. I've bribed people. I've done so much to get people to be on camera. And one of the things I'll always say is, if you hate it, I'll delete it and I'll pay for it. And they never do, because they see it and they go, oh. And then we do write a story about them, and they email. We'll send it to them first. We always send it to the employee before the client, because it's their story. And they come back and go, did I really say those things? Yes, you did, and it's just this wonderful moment when I go, this is why I want to do this stuff, How about you, Kat? How important is storytelling?
It's huge. We developed, when we went live with our EVP, we had 6 of our employees that we identified as our core storytellers as part of that EVP messaging. And each one is probably in the same situation. We had to sort of beg them to be part of the process. 2 years later, all 6 are still employed at Mercy, which again is something, and tells you something in that from that perspective. I think one of our talent, Sam in IT, so if you look at our website and look at Sam, every time we post a story about him, we get so many likes and comments from our staff, because everyone knows Sam from IT. He helps you with everything. So it does just, you mentioned pride. I think it builds pride within the organisation. It builds credibility outside of the organisation. We're moved down to sort of this data focus, so we use a lot of stats and metrics to sort of inform decisions. But I think the storytelling bit is what connects it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you need that to sort of, yes, you can have your stats and KPIs and go, how brilliant are we doing? But then you've got the storytelling that really sort of brings it all to life.
And the bit I'm trying constantly, and sometimes failing to articulate and really show, is it's not there's the stats and the strategy and the business, and then there's the nice stuff, the human. It's not that. These things combine. So recruitment, we say it's not a good hire or a bad hire. It's not a good applicant or a bad applicant. You've got to earn a great application. You've got to make people care. If the experience in the interview goes really well, they're more likely to want to come and work for you and want to prepare well for the next phase. Similarly, I see that all the time. It's pulling teeth sometimes to get people to want to do it, but when you get that happening, you get this momentum. The nirvana of all of this is active employee advocacy, internally and externally. And through those telling of stories, you're shifting. People often think, you're picking the Kool-Aid drinkers. Not at all. It's about capturing people and inspiring them to tell their truth and to challenge the organisation to be better, but also to share what's good and keep an eye on that bigger picture. What we see consistently is when you do that and when you start to create a momentum in that, people choose to be in a more positive mindset. People choose to go, yes, it's hard. Again, I guarantee most of your staff right now are battling with something, right? Most staff are, but in your sectors especially. But it's that ability to keep fueled and keep going and keep caring and saying this is worth it with this organisation, not just with this client or with this community group. And that's what this storytelling can really fuel, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And that, Matt's mentioned, we don't all choose to sort of go, I want to grow up and work in health. A lot of our frontline workers potentially do, maybe in aged care or not. But, I think over the years and even during COVID, it's kind of put things into perspective for all of us to kind of go, what is important and what work do I want to be doing? And a lot more people are wanting to work in a purpose-driven, mission-based or people-centered organisation. And I think we figured that out, Matt, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think others now are sort of coming to that realisation. And again, you're not coming to the organisation for the perks and the excitement. It's not a sexy organisation by any means. But there's brilliant stories, there's brilliant people, and it's a very challenging environment, but it's very rewarding as well. And I think that's where that storytelling piece comes in, because again, our workforce aren't standing up, beating on their chest saying how amazing we are and what we're doing. They're just doing it out of their own great heart. I
love that. Last question, possibly, it might be another one. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the future of talent and culture. There's a lot of challenge and change in your industry, but also certainly across Australia and certainly, the UK, where I'm from originally, and the US. There's also a lot of disruption, with tech, with AI. What are you seeing? How are you feeling about the future for talent, for HR, for people and culture?
Very big question. I was wondering if someone was going to mention the AI word.
Yeah. We're supposed to, aren't we?
Yeah, we have to all the time.
I have so many opinions, but I'm going to...
I know, I have loads of opinions as well. It's a tricky one. But we were updating our careers page, and we were sharing some information about what those who are applying for jobs can expect. And we were on the fence about making a decision of, do we call out the fact that we don't use AI at any stage of our recruitment process? We talk about storytelling and we talk about the human element of things, and it's really difficult to think about AI but also maintain that human element. So I think that's a tightrope that I think a lot of organizations are going to have to be really careful about walking. It's how do you reap the rewards and benefits of obviously what is commonplace tool, I suppose, whilst maintaining the ability to assess and have people walk that journey with you from the early stages. So that's a tricky one that I think we're questioning a lot internally at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. People keep saying, how good is AI going to get? I think we can assume AI is going to get great, better and better and better at the things it's doing and other things. And I for one, in what we do, there's lots of disruption, but I'm not here to defend against AI. Let's embrace it for what it can do. The big question for me is how much is the world and the humans going to tolerate and get used to? So a good example is you go on LinkedIn right now, there's a whole lot of content from everybody that is AI driven. Now, I don't love it, and I've got stories on this as well, but I think it really, some of them are fine, but that really, when someone posted about their mother had died, and it was a really personal post, and they'd used AI, and it was really obvious, not just the M dashes, but the way it was structured. AI's got a way of structured, it almost looks like a poem, right? Or some AI that I'm seeing, and I immediately didn't connect, because I felt you're saying something so personal about something, and you've chosen to do that. Now they might say, look, I wrote it myself and then I just refined. I thought, why? So I think that's there, but I think it's going to be interesting to see. Classic one is being interviewed and going through a recruitment process using AI. Are people going to just accept that and just go, okay, at least, are people going to actually prefer it? You know, there was a time when we preferred to talk to humans on the phone in call centres, and some people still do, but there's plenty of people now saying, I prefer just to press the button and do the auto machine thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. For me, for what it's worth, I think it's a huge backswing. There will be a huge backswing to the real valuing and needing connection and humanity and subjective interpretation and so on.
I agree. I think we're going to get to the point where nothing has value to it. I mean, a manager the other day said, I want cover letters in my application forms because I value cover letters. And I said, they're all AI driven now. What used to be a way of sort of separating two similar CVs by seeing someone's genuine written style in a cover letter is no longer, because everyone's using generic, they're quite generic anyway. And similarly, throughout the whole process, you're going to get everything's kind of generic. And how do you differentiate then between everyone? So it kind of, I think the future is around, we're going to go through, a bit of influx, and then we're going to sort of get a balance. And then I think we're going to put a lot of emphasis and almost take that step back to go, let's do things a little bit old school again. Let's bring people in for an interview and meet them face to face at a table as opposed to doing everything on Teams. Or, where am I going to get the most value in meeting someone and understanding them? And that bit is never going to be replaced by technology, and it can't be, because that's the only bit from a recruitment point of view, working in a people-focused organisation is actually the bit that tells us, is this person, or would I myself want this person caring for my grandparent? You don't get that during a Teams call sometimes, or through a cover letter. So I think there's a big shift in technology, and I think we're all embracing it and we're all having fun with it. But I think there'll be a time, and it's unfortunate because I'm sure people write really well, and we're going to be like, did they do that with ChatGPT? Something like you won't even sort of give people the credit.
Hallmark of authentic content is now typos.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, you're looking for spelling mistakes and grammatical errors as a positive thing now, because it's been written by a human.
Do you know what I think's interesting? Maybe it won't matter. Maybe we'll stop wondering, but maybe the actual the impact of that content will be what counts. So what we find is not so much the execution of the words. Of course, there's great storytelling and ability in writing, but it's actually about what you choose to talk about and how you choose to see it. It's the human observation of something and the way they choose to tell that story. That's the stuff that still shines through so strongly. I love your point about you're talking about a recruitment process and AI and so on, and marketing and content, and then you're flowing it through to the people that you actually put in your organisation who are caring for someone's mum or grandmother or friend. It's probably a good way to pull this to a close, just to say, you've got these huge workforce across Australia and across the world who are doing such critical work, and it is so damn human. So I'm really excited that we have people like you in talent and strategy that are actually bringing those people in and helping them get settled. I wish you all the best for the next bit, and let's keep going.
Wonderful.
Thank you both very much. Cheers.
Thank you.